What's up, guys? My name's Brandon, and today Apple released iOS 18.6.1 to the general public just a couple of weeks after the release of iOS 18.6. And along with this update, we did get watchOS 11.6.1 as well, and you'll see how that ties into this in a moment. But of course, in this video, we are mainly talking about iOS 18.6.1 and everything new in the update. So taking a look at the size here, it came in just under 500 megabytes on my iPhone 15 Pro Max, which was running iOS 18.6 before this. So relatively small size, which is expected for a double point update, a 0.6.1 update. So let's go ahead and check out this new build number for this update. Right here in our settings, we can see the build number is 22G90. And then the modem firmware is 2.70.02. All right, so now what's new here in iOS 18.6.1? And if we go back and take a look at the release notes for this update on the software update screen, it shows you the main change that's going to be added in this update. And this is like a year in the making. I think a lot of people have been waiting on this for well over a year now. So it says this update provides a new blood oxygen experience for users in the US with Apple Watch Series 9, 10, and Ultra 2. Measurements are now calculated on iPhone and viewed in the Health app. So essentially, Apple is bringing back a revamped version of blood oxygen monitoring on the Apple Watch. So if you don't remember, back in 2024 in January, the medical device company Masimo accused Apple of stealing its patented pulse oximeter technology, and that's what kind of led to the ban of US imports of newer Apple Watch models that had that feature. And now, like a year and a half later, Apple has finally found a workaround, and basically to get around this ban, and they put this on their newsroom press release, they said that the blood oxygen data collected on the watch will now be measured and calculated on the iPhone that it's paired to, and that can then be viewed in the Health application. So let's now see what's changed with blood oxygen on the Apple Watch. So if you go into the blood oxygen application on the Apple Watch, it will say the blood oxygen app has changed. You will now find blood oxygen results in the Health app on your iPhone, and when you tap on done, it will give us some tips on how to take a good recording. So it said make sure your watch is not too low on your wrist, and also make sure that your watch band is snug but comfortable. And then we get other animations here saying to keep your watch facing up and try not to move. So we're gonna go ahead and do that. And we're gonna put this to the side and we'll do start. We'll just set our wrist down here. That way it stays still, and we'll see what our reading is and how that looks inside of the Health application. So here's what it now shows. It says recording complete, open Health on iPhone to see your results. And I did just get a pop-up from the Health application right there. And by the way, on the Watch application on your iPhone, if you go into the Watch app and go down to blood oxygen, you do want to make sure that this is enabled. So it should be enabled by default after updating, but if not, you do want to go into there, and you do also have allow background recordings in sleep focus and also in theater mode. So let's go and check out the Health results here. So on our main page, we have the summary, but if you go over to browse and then go into respiratory, we will see blood oxygen, and you can see that we have our latest run right here at 357. So it shows I am currently at 95%, which I believe is healthy. So you can go into show more, and it will show you more information about that test as well. So it'll show your range, your daily average, your high elevation, sleep, all of that right there, which can be very beneficial. And keep in mind that Apple Watch models in the US that included the original blood oxygen monitoring feature and those that were purchased internationally, like in other countries, you don't need this workaround with this new update because the feature was never disabled for you. So just keep that in mind. And also, a lot of people have asked me, what is blood oxygen? What's the point of it? What's the usefulness of measuring your blood oxygen levels? And basically, blood oxygen as a whole is just the percentage of oxygen that your red blood cells are carrying compared to their maximum capacity. And what it's used for, and you can actually see Apple mentions some of this right here as well, but it checks for how well your lungs are delivering oxygen to your blood and also how efficiently your body is circulating that. And if you look at the chart and you have low levels, like if you're getting warnings or you see some levels are really low consistently, then that can indicate breathing problems, heart issues, or other health concerns that you might want to talk to a doctor about. And if you want to learn more about this, you could just go into the blood oxygen section right here and then just tap on this graphic, and it will give you a much more detailed, understanding of blood oxygen and why it's useful to actually be monitoring with your Apple Watch. Now, as far as anything else goes for iOS 18.6.1, I would not expect anything else to come from this update. So again, double point updates are typically always going to be only bug fix updates or security patch updates, unless there's something mentioned in the release notes like we saw with this update where we got the blood oxygen monitoring back. So, don't expect any type of other major visual changes with this update. Now, if you had issues with performance or battery life, in the past, it could fix that, but I would not expect a major difference there either. And on the topic of performance, iOS 18.6 was extremely stable. That was the most stable build of iOS 18 as a whole, and it was pretty noticeable. I think everybody kind of agreed on that as well. So I would expect 18.6.1 to be pretty much exactly the same as that performance. You can see I did run a Geekbench 6 test. You can see how it compares to the previous runs. So I would expect 18.6.1 to be just as stable as iOS 18.6, which is a good sign. And again, it could even patch up some bugs that you had existing on 18.6, but Apple didn't mention those specifically. Now, as far as battery life goes, battery life on iOS 18.6 has been top tier. Like, battery life has been better than ever on iOS 18.6, just like the performance. So the build overall is just extremely solid. And I think it's why a lot of people didn't update to iOS 26 betas. I don't blame you. But as far as battery life goes, I would not expect that to get any worse or any better. Like I said, just like with the performance, with these double point updates, you're typically not going to see any type of major change in performance or battery life or any major new features unless they're listed in the release notes like we saw. Now, with all that being said, should you update to iOS 18.6.1? And I would say that if you have an Apple Watch Series 9, 10, or Ultra 2, absolutely go ahead and update, even if you're not somebody who cares about blood oxygen monitoring, or if you're somebody who doesn't really check that every week or every month. It's still nice to have that health data in your health application. So I would absolutely update for that if you're somebody who does wear one of these newer Apple Watches on a daily basis. Now, if you're not somebody who has an Apple Watch, then you probably don't need to update to 18.6.1, honestly, because there's not only no other major changes in the updates, but also there are no security patches. So typically with these double point updates, you do see security patches, but we don't have any for 18.6.1. So I would say that, just to keep your device as secure as possible, if you're doing good on 18.6 right now, I would probably just not even update to 18.6.1. Like, you can if you want to. It could fix some bugs if you had those, but if everything's running perfect for you, I don't really see any reason to go ahead and update to 18.6.1 because, again, no security patches and no other, forward-facing features aside from the blood oxygen monitoring. But with that being said, there's typically no harm in updating to a double point update. It's pretty much going to be the same as 18.6. So let's go ahead and talk about what to expect next from Apple, because we are right here in mid-August. We're just a month away from seeing iOS 26 released to the general public. Now, will we see an iOS 18.7? Most likely, yes. It might not be in beta testing for very long. We might just have an RC and then the release of iOS 18.7, but that's most likely not going to release until sometime in September. And at that time, I think most people are going to be switching over to iOS 26. So if you're curious about when iOS 26 is going to release, it could release, most likely, it's going to be on September 15th. That's looking like the most likely day right now if Apple does hold their event on the week of September 8th. But of course, we'll have to wait and see on that. I will bring you guys updates like I always do here on the channel. So if you're not subscribed already, make sure you do get subscribed. Anyways, that's it for iOS 18.6.1, a very minor update, really only useful for those with an Apple Watch and that blood oxygen monitoring. So regardless, if you guys enjoyed this video, I would appreciate if you gave it a thumbs up. Also, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss out on future iOS update videos just like this one. But anyways, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon.